Hey, thanks, Tim. Good morning, everyone. Just want to take a little bit of time and talk about Ohio soil maps, where they are, how you can access them, and some cool tools that are available to get into them. Talk some about web soil survey and how to use it, but also talk a little bit about some other tech that's available to access the same information. I've been giving this presentation for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years now, and every year there's new apps or new improvements to some of the apps there to access soils information. So I just want to show you guys some of that stuff. But first, before I get going, I want to talk a little bit about just soils maps, and just a reminder of how soils maps are made. These soils maps were made, by field parties that went out county by county and spent a couple years, digging and looking at the soil and creating a map of the county of what soils were there. They typically were looking at the top profile, maybe the first 6 feet or less. They may go down 2 meters now when they do a soil survey. So they're looking at the very top of the soil, mostly for agricultural purposes, sometimes for land development. And Ohio's were done over a series of decades. But it's important to remember with our soils maps that they're predictive. And what I mean by that is this is a map that put together that kind of shows baseball fans by zip code. And it's a predictive map. Like if you come to Columbus, chances are someone's gonna, if you talk to them on the street, they're gonna be an Indians fan. But that's not everyone's gonna be an Indians fan. There will be Reds fans and Pirates fans and Tigers fans within Columbus. But you can kind of predict how close you are to the city, the fan base of the town. In Cincinnati, chances are you're going to be a Reds fan. And it's a predictive map. So based on the location, you can predict if you're going to be a fan. Some maps are explicit. Like a map like this is pretty explicit. You can tell exactly what county you're in. If you can cross the line and go from Franklin County to Pickaway County, and you're 100% in Franklin County or 100% in Pickaway County. Our soils maps are predictive. Our soils maps aren't explicit. So although we present our soils maps like this, our soils maps have lines and show distinct areas and distinct soils. Those lines are not precise. You cross over that line, there's not 100% chance of going from one soil to another. This was some guys several years ago or decades ago, their prediction of where that soil would be. So it's important to keep in mind when you're going out, using these maps. And it's important to keep in mind even how wide that line is on that soil map. That line is probably even 30 feet wide as it goes through there. So just keep that in mind as you use your soil map. It's not 100% great. It's a guess at what soil is there. And it's always best to be ground truth. So a couple things I wanted to talk about today, places where you can get soils information. I want to share a different window here a second. Hold on. So the first place, or the official place to go for soils information, would be the Web Soil Survey. And many of you have probably seen this before. I won't spend a ton of time going through every part of Web Soil Survey. But if you haven't seen it before, you can get to it through Web Soil Survey. And the important thing is to know is in order to get to the soils information, you always have to create what's called an area of interest. So you start with the map, you zoom in to an area that you want to know the soils on, and the soils don't automatically pop up. It just goes into an aerial map. You then have to use this tool one of these two tools to create an area of interest, either a rectangle or a polygon. So if you do a simple rectangle, you can draw that. And then it'll create the area of interest and figure out what soils are there. Still doesn't show them, it shows your area of interest. And there are a series of tabs across the top here. These yellow tabs, they're the navigation. So once you create the area of interest, you can go to the soil map. Then it'll draw the soil map units on the fields. And over here on the left, it'll create a table showing you what soil map units are within your area of interest. Before I move into the soils, with the area of interest, there is the ability to import and export an area of interest. So if you have a shapefile, you can import that here, or once you've created an area of interest, let's say you want to come back to a web soil survey later, you can export a zip file and keep that. So once you have that area of interest, you can go to your soil map and see what's there. Excuse me. So once you can see that map, you can get your soil rating. So you have the Soil Data Explorer tab. That's the next thing. You see the map, you go Soil Data Explorer. And then you have your suitabilities and limitations for use. And this is really where all the ratings for the soils are. This is where you can create color-coded maps based on soil. For example, if you're looking to do a building with basins in Ohio, we have a rating for that. You can, from this menu, pick that rating and type view rating. It'll then color code the map and show you that it's terrible to build a building with a basin in Ohio. No. What we're really showing is that there are limitations. So a lot of the soils for certain uses will show red. Below there will be a table that shows every soil.
Well, I was talking to Kendall, going through some of these contracts.
And the ratings.
That Kobe Brough up there.
And the rating for each soil. And then why it's limited. So all of these soils are limited. They all showed up as red. But over here, I'll show you why. The soil's limited. So with this, if you were creating a map that you wanted to reference later, or you wanted to give to someone, you can make this map part of a PDF. You can either print this right away, create a printable version of this map, or you can add it to the shopping cart. This is where you would, they call it a shopping cart. You never actually have to pay anything, but the idea is it's a lot like a e-commerce site where you could take a series of maps, add them all to your shopping cart, and at the end of your experience, go and print everything out in one PDF. So with this, you could add this to the shopping cart, okay, and then later on, if you're done looking up whatever maps you want, you can go to your shopping cart, which is free, and create a PDF. You can select which parts of the PDF you want included. It'll preview them. You click on one of those preview that. And when you're done, you can click check out, and it'll either email it to you later, or you can just download the PDF right now to your computer. So that's basic web soil survey, how to get to soil maps and ratings inside soil survey. This is the official source of soil information. Another thing you can do here is download soils data. So if you were looking to take this soils information and take it into a GIS program on your computer, this is a place where you can go and download the county database, or you can download county by county the Surgo, which is the commonly used map unit for the AOI or for the county. You can download the entire GIS file to your computer and then work on it. So for this AOI, it's clipped down those acres and made a database that you could then use in ArcGIS. One more thing that's accessible through here is archive soil surveys. So taking you out of web soil survey now and back a generation, you can go to archive soil surveys and publish soil surveys for Ohio. Well, this takes you to an RCS site where you can go to Ohio. It then shows you all the counties and all the times a book was published for the county. For example, with Adams County, they had 2 books published, one in 1938 and one in 1994. And then the current is what's presently on Web Soil Survey. But if you wanted to look at the 1994 book for Adams County, you know, the black and white one that's on the shelf, you can access it here through that link. I should tell you though what is missing. So the book is here and it has all the tables, all the descriptions of the soil. However, it does not have at the end the maps. So if you had the published book, it would have these 200 pages. And at the end, it would have a series of maps of the county showing you where the soil is. What is online here has the historical information, but it does not have the maps. But it's still a good way to go see the historical soil surveys. They're all linked through Web Soil Survey up here, archive soil surveys. I did want to mention that right now our soils information is updated once a year. So there's an annual update for soils information. Soil scientists that are updating the soil survey work through the year. And then right now on the beginning of July, things get refreshed. So the information can change in Web Soil Survey once a year. It used to be updated in the beginning of September, but starting last year, in July 2020, that was the first update then, when it got moved from September to July. So if you've downloaded soils information, you have it on your computer, it's good to possibly go refresh it once a year. There may be small changes made to the interpretations or small changes made to map units in your county once a year in July. I'm going to move on from web soil survey now and talk about some of the other tools that are available to get in web soil survey. And to be honest, some of the tools that I use more frequently than web soil survey if I'm looking for soils information quickly. First one of those, there's a series of tools that are run through University of California, Davis. You can find this just by Googling UC Davis Soil Web. And they'll take you to their, take you to this tool. There's a series of apps available, and the first one is just called Soil Web. And it is a web-based interface to soils information, kind of like web soil survey, but I would say it's more up to date. It's not more up to date. The soils information is the same iteration. The interface is probably a little more up to date. So this is the interface. You go in and it automatically has the soil lines drawn already. You don't have to create an area of interest. Like that's the first thing you had to do in web soil surveys, create an area of interest. You don't have to do that here. Another advantage of Soil Web is it's cross-platform, meaning this interface could work on your Android phone, it could work on your iPad, it can work on your web browser, no matter where you are. You know, what app or device you're using, you can get into this interface and it'll work the same. Web soil survey is limited to desktop computers and browsers. So with this, you know, you can zoom in and out. This is the state of Ohio. You can go into a site, zoom in, and it'll draw the soil lines for you. So that's, and the advantage with this is you can kind of pan and zoom. You don't have to continue. If you miss the site that you wanted to draw to begin with, you can pan and zoom around. And then you can click. And when you click, it brings up this information over here, this map unit composition. This is a Kokomo map unit. And these percentages here, they're the guesses of, you know, there's a 90% chance that inside this map unit, the soil is Kokomo, and, you know, 5% Salina, 5% Crosby. Another cool feature of this is it includes some visualization and soil profile. If you don't know exactly what a Kokomo soil is, you can click on it and it'll draw a profile using the colors that are in the web soil survey. So it'll show gray over black soil, you know, down to 163 centimeters. If you were to click on a higher soil, a more well-drained soil like a Crosby, it's going to draw it out to be a much, you know, browner profile, deeper profile. So you can visualize, you know, that soil just by clicking on it and clicking on the soil itself. Also down here, there's a section with the hydraulic and erosion ratings. So some of the information you might be looking for quickly, like factor or hydric rating or hydrologic group, accessible right there. There's a lot of information in here. You know, how much clay is in the profile. Again, this is a visualization of profile depth and the amount of clay. Like there's less than 20% of clay at the surface, but you get down to 50 centimeters deep, you have 40% clay. There are lots of visualizations like that available in this interface. The other thing you can get to is the official series description. You click on Soil Data Explorer. If you don't know that much about a Crosby soil, you click on Soil Data Explorer. It'll take you to a lot of information about a Crosby soil, starting with the official series description. So this is a verbal description of what the soil is, that it's somewhat poorly drained, that it's moderately deep to till, and then has a description of each horizon. There's a lot of other information here that I'm not going to talk about. It's kind of beyond the scope of this morning, but there's all the lab data for Crosby that's been collected during the soil survey, the average value and the ranges for all sorts of different parameters. Sort of comparisons between a Crosby and different other types of soils. But one of the more useful things that I found that I use are these block diagrams. If you don't know what a Crosby is compared to other soils in your county, like if you were in Clinton County, you could go to this block diagram. These are the drawings from the soil survey that help you visualize, the landscape and how the different soils sit in association on a landscape. So you can see that, your Miamians, your high or drier soil, and your Crosby's, you're kind of in between soil, right? Moderately well drained that sits midway on the landscape, not high nor low. So every block diagram in the country that's ever been made that contains Crosby is available under this block diagram page. So you can look at the ones in Indiana or Ohio. There's another one showing Crosby, Salina, Miami, and Kokomo, and what they're made of, loess over glacial till. Another cool thing you can look at here is the extent. So this is for Crosby, just a random soil that I picked, but it'll show where all in the United States Crosby soils exist. So you click on extent and it can show you. So some map units we have map units that aren't that common, and they're only a couple hundred acres of a certain named soil and may only be in your county. And some soils are quite prevalent, like this one. Crosby spans a good part of the country, or a good part of our region. But if you want to see this another way, there's the Series Extent Explorer, which is kind of a cool tool where you can put in Crosby, but you can add other things here too. Like if you wanted to see how Crosby and let's say Blount look, you can see. And then let's say we had Hoytville. These are all common soils in Ohio, but you can see how graphically those soils lay out differently. So Crosby is below one of the glacial divides here. It's more in southwestern Ohio. Blount is more of the northern soil, and then Hoytville sits in the lake plain of Old Lake Erie. So you can kind of compare if you have two soils that you don't know the difference between, or you don't know where they are, you can put them in to the Series Extent Explorer and it'll quickly visualize where those soils are. The other cool thing here is it has a bunch of points. These are actual points where the soil was sampled and sent away for lab data. So you could go to one of these points and click on it and say, show me the lab data. And it'll say this is it was probably sampled in 1984 in Ohio. And you can go there and get texture and all the lab information for each one of these points. Back to Soil Web itself, there's one cool thing that they've added recently. So if you're checking your email or you've zoned out because you already know all this stuff, this is one new improvement that they've added to Soil Web here recently. You zoom into this area, and there's this link over here that says link to Web Soil Survey, link to WSS. You can click that, and it'll fire up Web Soil Survey and draw the AOI for you of where you were inside of the Soil Web. So remember how I started that presentation? Right, you have to get into Web Soil Survey, you have to draw your AOI. If you use Soil Web, you can kind of do a shortcut, and they'll do it for you and get you into Web Soil Survey and draw the AOI, and then you can start getting your rate. I want to transition to, I guess, another tool. This Soil Web interface, it's also available in Google Earth. So if you go to that UC Davis website, there's Soil Web, which, you know, this is this web interface that you can use on your phone or your tablet or anywhere. But you can also download this KML file that will then plug into Google Earth for you. So to show you what that looks like, here's my Google Earth, just with the KML file. Here's the KML pulled into Google Earth, the Soil Web. But I can zoom into some place in Ohio. And if I zoom in far enough and wait, it'll draw the soil lines on there. So I can see the Google aerial imagery. I can use the address search in Google and get somewhere and see these soil lines. Again, I can zoom in and out and pan without drawing an area of interest. It's clickable. If I click on it, it will visualize the diagram or visualize the profile with colors. It allowed me to click on that and pull up the series description. It does say that this interface is now deprecated. Everything doesn't work perfectly, but it still does draw the soil lines. One of the coolest things I like about this interface is you can turn on the terrain in Google Earth. I have my terrain exaggerated here, but you can see, it can help you visualize the landscape and how these soil map units sit in elevation difference. So this is an exaggerated elevation difference, but you can see that map unit at the top of the hill. As we go down the slope, there's another one. So you can see, it can help you visualize the terrain and the map units along with the aerial imagery behind it. So I always exaggerate my elevation. If you don't know how to do that, that's under tools and options. You can exaggerate this up to 3. Then it'll make your hills look crazy, like you're in Switzerland or something, and not Ohio, which is what I usually have to do when I'm in Western Ohio and there is no elevation difference. So that'll exaggerate your elevation and let you see those differences even better. Another thing I wanted to show you is there is a web app. So this is an emulator I'm running on my computer that's emulating Android. This app's also available for iPhones. It's just called Soil Web. If you go to your favorite app store, you can look up Soil Web and find this. And it's kind of slick because it uses the GPS inside your phone. If you open up the app, you can just say, get soil data, and it'll look up where you're standing using your GPS and come back with your map unit and, you know, a prediction of what the soil is there, and draw the soil map units, you know, draw those profiles and give you that soil information. So this is another quick interface. You know, if you're out in the field and you just have this app, you can use it to identify where you are. But I tend to use this, but I also use the Soil Web browser interface when I'm in the field, because I like to look around the map and see, where I am, what's around me. So this is what I typically use on my phone in the field if I'm out and about and I don't have access to any other access to soil information. And one final thing I wanted to show you is the Geospatial Gateway. I know probably a lot of you have soils information on your computer already, but if you don't, you can get it through Web Soil Survey. I showed you can download soils data through Web Soil Survey. Or another place to get it is through this Geospatial Gateway. You can get data by your county. If you go to Ohio and Adams County, this has a lot of information. If you're looking for your HUC units or even just counties, county boundaries, whatever, you can download those layers. But down here, there's a soils information, and you can get the gridded Virgo. So this is a raster instead of what you get through Web Soil Survey is lines and polygons. This is a raster-based soil layer that you can download here through Geospatial Data Gateway. So that's my show and tell this morning. Thanks for your patience as you watch me use a computer for half an hour, but I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
So if you have any questions, feel free to add them to the chat, or you can unmute your microphone and ask one. I've got one for you, Matt. You mentioned that we should be looking at updating our soil information on an annual basis, give or take. What kind of things would actually change or spur a change in our soil maps at this point in time?
So what changes in the soil maps? So there's still ongoing work being done out at the soil survey offices. Like in the Finley office, we have soil scientists doing updates, and those updates can be minor. For example, they could just be adding interpretations to map units. They could be changing some of the interpretations. Like, for example, down in Southeast Ohio, we kind of redid some of the slip prone ratings for some of the soils over the past few years. So there was, I think, new guidance on how to figure out if soils are slip prone or not. So some of those ratings changed in the map units. So that would be a very kind of behind the scenes thing that you wouldn't see unless you're looking for slip prone ratings. But sometimes there are major changes, like up in Northwest Ohio recently, some of the map units changed, and there was, you would actually see the names change between, escaping me right now, but like whether, let me go show you on the survey. That's probably the easiest way to describe it. This is why I like SoilWeb, because I can do it quickly. This was a larger update that was done recently up in Northwest Ohio that And you can tell the newer map units because they have a longer name. So the old ones are just simple like PMA. The newer ones have this BLG1A1.
We're not seeing anything, Matt. You need to share it.
You need to share it? All right, thank you. All right, so this is up in Northwest Ohio outside Findlay. Newer map units have this longer name instead of an abbreviation like PMA1. This one has a BLG1A1. So I have a 6-character name. And this was some work that was done up there recently where Blount, which is a common soil, was differentiated between ground moraine and end moraine. So scientists figured out these soils are actually kind of a little bit different based on how they were formed. So Blount was kind of split out into 2 different soils up in Northwest Ohio. So that'd be like a major change that you would see that might happen. So those are the types of updates that can happen yearly. But what you probably will unlikely see is the lines probably will not move. The lines will stay the same, but the names of the soil, so the interpretation of the soil inside the lines is what changes from year to year.
Thanks, Matt. Anybody else have any other questions for Matt? Well, it looks like that's it, Matt. Thanks for the presentation today. Enjoyed that. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. The recording for this will get posted up on our YouTube page, and you'll see an announcement come out through the Federation email service on when that is posted. So if you know anybody who missed it and wanted to catch it, they can see it on our YouTube page. And with that, we'll conclude for today. Thank you.